It's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future, but at least you can preempt certain things by having the guardrails. Make sure that you are taking, like you mentioned earlier, calculated risks in terms of what your approach is to a certain thing that you're trying to do. So you have to have that foresight, that vision, and that responsibility to make sure that you're not sort of putting all your eggs, metaphorically speaking, in one basket. You have to make sure that you have covering your bases and making sure that you are working out scenarios that may or may not happen along the way.
I have a very, very special guest here. I have Push Sharma, all the way from Singapore, founder and CEO at Haldy. He's an author, an inventor, a multi-award winner within health and wellness. He went to Columbia University and he was born and developed a growth mindset. Being the founder and CEO of Haldy, where he's had the exciting opportunity to launch the world's first sugar-free turmeric mint in Singapore. Now, they're manufactured in US FDA and BRCGS, Food Safety Certified Facility, and he holds a design patent for their unique recyclable mint pack, something he has had a passion and something he's extremely proud of. His academic journey took him to Nagpur University, where he completed his bachelor's in architecture, graduating in the top 1% of his class. He was then at Columbia University, where he earned his master's degree and was elected the president of the MSRED class of 2006. He was also the first Indian to be elected as the class president. And over the past 20 years, he's worked in over 5 countries across India and built a career that spans private equity investments, business development, entrepreneurship. He thrives in both the structured corporate setting, fast-paced entrepreneurial environments. Maybe that's why he'll talk a little bit there about Singapore. And he's always approached challenges with a growth mindset and a belief in taking calculated risks. Calculated risks, guys. In the past decades, he's focused on startups and innovation, including founding and exiting Space Genie before launching Haldy. He's worked across APAC, Europe, and US, and he's built strategic partnerships, collaborated with diverse cross-functional teams across sales, marketing, product, legal, finance, and operations. His the ability to think creatively, analytically, and outside the box has been an instrument in his success, especially when navigating challenges and identifying opportunities. So, Push, it's amazing to have you here. Your passion, the way you've been able to adapt in entrepreneurial environments, and your experience within private equity business development. It's an honor to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Marketing is all about storytelling. Dad, when we first started this business, what did you say to me?
I said, yes, we do a podcast.
Why?
Because I want to tell our story.
Why?
Because I know the story builds a legacy.
Builds a legacy. And that is exactly what we do here at ETS Rubasha Media. We market your story on social media so you could build a legacy for those who come after you, to build your business and your personal brand.
Yeah, follow us on our platform. Go on our website, etsrubashamedia.com.
This is about legacy, and it is about showing up on social media every single day, because if you don't show up, your competition will.
Wow, thank you so much, Sujira. You just relived my life in a very short span. So thank you so much. I think there's a lot to do still, but I'm really excited that what I have come and sort of what has built me the person that I am today. So very grateful for all the experiences, and great to be on your show. And I sense and I feel your passion as well. I'm not as well dressed as you
Thank
are,
you.
but I'm wearing my shirt with my brand, so there's a bit of branding as well.
Exactly. And that's what we're here for. That's why when I saw it, I loved it. I loved it straight away because I could see the branding. That's why we're also marketing, right? This is part of marketing. Marketing or personal branding, it's not about vanity. I know I said all of those amazing things, but personal branding is about, this is what I'm passionate about, and I'm going to put the spotlight on this. I'm going to talk about this. And the big founders now, the people who launch companies and do extremely well, like yourself, have a personal brand. You were on BBC. You have a powerful LinkedIn profile, and that's how we're here today. So before Haldy, who were you a little bit, and what pushed you in towards building this company? You talked a little bit there in the intro in terms of exits and the private equity. So I'd just love to touch on that, because we do have an audience here who are in that private equity, venture capital, the family office space, who have that type of capital and are looking into invest into businesses. And then we have the CEOs who, unlike you, who are visionaries, who have exited and who are building companies from startups all the way, building amazing things. And we just bridge that gap together.
Right, right. Well, it's a very good question, and a lot of not so long back we were hit with COVID, and we were all trying to scramble for things and trying to figure out what's next and where life will take us. And it so happened that I was living in China at that time. But just if I step back a little bit, I think the prior to starting Haldi, I've been an entrepreneur for over a decade now, and I've always wanted to do something of my own, build something that creates value. And over the years, that's really the passion that I have, and I've done stuff that I really believed in, so much so that most things that I did prior to Haldi were more trendy, I feel. Which is, I was a trailing spouse, so I had to make sure that whatever I do allows me to work in different countries. So that allowed me to set up an online venture. It allowed me to do a consulting company, and which helps raise some money as well. But then I felt that during COVID was the real calling that came, and it's a brand, or it's a passion that I built on a trying to solve my own problem. And the problem was very simple: was to find a way to boost immunity in a tasty, refreshing, and a convenient way. And with that, I'm born in India, raised in India. I've been an athlete most of my life, played lots of sports. So turmeric is something that always helped build immunity, build muscle recovery, all the good stuff. And I realized that during COVID, there was no medication for COVID. There was no vaccination earlier at that time. So we started to eat turmeric in pill powder capsule form. And that became, although I was used to the taste, it felt a bit medicinal and also a bit sort of hard to build a routine around it. So I was, at the same time, we moved back to Singapore in 2020, and I realized that we were all wearing masks and eating mint to keep our breath fresh. So one day I woke up and I realized that we have so many empty packs of mints at home, but they're not really giving me any benefit besides just the freshness of breath. And here I was eating, turmeric in pill powder capsule form as a medicine every day. And I was like, it'll be nice if there's a mint which has turmeric in it. And that sort of sparked an idea. I just thought that, maybe that might solve two problems. One, I get the daily dose of turmeric that I need, and it also freshens my breath. So that's really where the idea sort of came from. And but prior to that, it's always been like online venture that I had, Spaces Genie, or my other company Mantra Ventures. So it was more consulting. It was more like I said, to make sure that I'm keeping myself very relevant regardless of which country I'm eventually in. It allows me to play in the areas that I'm sort of advising people or sort of working, or my last startup was. And yeah, and Haldi has been my closest baby, so to speak, and something which was more out of passion and problem for myself. And I'm just very glad that it's gone the way that I had hoped it would, and it continues to keep me motivated and excited in the morning and through the day.
So when was the first time you ever tried turmeric?
So that was hard to say. As Indians, in our cooking, we use turmeric, lentils, and most of our food has a lot of turmeric. So the relationship with turmeric started very early in my life. It's very hard to say when, but I do know it was much, maybe 5 years or younger. At the same time, as an athlete or as somebody who was very active into sports, whenever for muscle recovery, people would always give us turmeric and milk. I don't know if you never tried it. So you have to mix milk and turmeric together and drink it, which sort of help build, muscle, etc., recovery. So I've been always used to it, having it in that way, more so in a more cooked fashion. It's something that you put in, like a pinch of turmeric in a lentil, in a soup, or in a dal that you eat, or some vegetable that you're cooking, or eat it drink it in a milk, sort of like in a powder. So it was a bit of a process, because we realized that, we were not cooking as much Indian food as one would like, given we were living in China at that time. So the best way was to have it in a supplement form. But then like I said, it was very medicinal and very hard to build a routine around it. And this just sparked an idea, and I just went with my gut and went along the way. There was, initially I thought, I'm sure it's been done before. And I started to find out where I looked pretty much everywhere, and this was not existing. So, which is why it took me to India, in Kerala, which is like the birthplace of Ayurveda. and got a team to sort of help build the formulation, the initial formulation. And took me 2 long years to sort of work it through, all of this while COVID was going on. So it was not really very, there wasn't a straight line, there was nothing was really cast in stone. We had to find a way around things. And of course, there was travel limitations as well. But yeah, but looking back, I think we've come a long way and managed to launch a product during COVID as well. So yeah, lots of exciting learnings there as well.
And so for the like people who don't know, in a simple way, what is turmeric exactly?
Okay, so turmeric is idly, it's essentially an herb, which is like in the ginger family. It looks like the ginger root, and it got a lot of medicinal benefits, and it's been used in ancient Ayurveda, which is a very ancient science, which helps the body heal in multiple ways, and it's a lot of other benefits as well. There's a lot of research that's been done in turmeric, like it prevents Alzheimer's. It's good for the heart, good for the skin. It's good for boosting your immunity, etc. And there are different forms of eating turmeric. You can have it, sliced, you can have it like normally a lot of people have turmeric shots, which they have in the morning, or they put it have a turmeric latte, for example. So there are different ways of consuming turmeric in different forms. I've just made it a little bit more palatable and on the go, so you can carry a pack of a pack of haldi mints on the go, and you can eat it as you wish, whenever you want. So, but at the same time, it's more the in terms of habit, it's more a mint versus a supplement. So you eat it more as a breath mint with the goodness of turmeric. And if you want to eat a supplement, then please go eat a supplement. That's how we've positioned the product and our value proposition.
So, like, what problem did you see out there that other people were overlooking? Because that's quite interesting. What you talked about it through COVID, you saw how turmeric was, wow, okay, this is a way that can help heal, just natural, with that. And so to now turn that into a mint, yeah, what problem did you see? Now, if I do take these mints, for example, what difference does that make?
Sure. So interestingly, so Singapore doesn't allow chewing gum. And so I think that became an interesting play for me, given everyone pretty much eats mint in this market that we are in. And I realized that I was trying not to change habits of people, but I was trying to offer them something that gives them some benefit, which is something better for you. And that's the value proposition I went in with. The problem to solve was not to change habits, but to give people something which gives them a little bit more bang for their buck, so to speak. So, which means that you get the goodness of turmeric and you get the freshness of breath at the same time. But the turmeric that you eat in a mint, in our mint, you don't get the aftertaste and it doesn't stain your teeth. So we made sure that we were addressing issues that people initially had during our consumer trials, and we addressed those issues by design in the formulation, so people get those benefits. So in that sense, that was the problem to solve, that I was trying to look at. And I was probably fortunate as well that at least in the sample size of people that we did everyone ate mint. And the other thing, interesting thing was, it was not a particular nationality or a particular type of people. It was pretty much across the board, which in some ways really helped us drive better trials with people. And we, it's never easy, and even for me, for that matter, it's very hard to break habits, because sometimes you break a habit because you're forced to, but it doesn't last very long. It's very short term, and I didn't want to have that sort of short term objective in what I was launching. So first, the problem to solve was for myself and my family, that we wanted to eat turmeric. My kids were eating mints as well every day in school. There were tons of packs as well, but not very sugary. It has aspartame, it acylfim K, all of that. So I said, let's create something which is better, where people can eat it. That really started with an idea for myself and the like people around me. I remember it was interesting when we had our first batch of samples. We had some friends over, and during COVID time there were restrictions of how many people you could meet at a given point of time. I gave them mints without really telling them much about it, and just to get their reaction. And they were like, "Where can we buy it? Which brand is it? Like, where did you get it? Who's selling this?" So that was very interesting in terms of just get the validation from people without really telling them that, oh, it's something that I'm trying to launch. Or so I was doing sort of a pilot test, with people who I also knew besides the people that we did. consumer trials with. And it was great. The reactions were fantastic, and that's it. Just went across the board. It was the denominator in our initial drive and launch, where everyone had similar feedbacks. There were a lot of builds that we did as well. And I think the idea was to not just provide something which tastes better for you. It's also about the packaging, because the first aha a consumer gets when they see uh, anything on shelf is, how does the packaging look? And then it comes, the moment of truth is actually the taste of the mint. So we did a lot of things. So for example, if I just take a second, take a minute, during COVID, nobody wanted to dig into like a pack of mints where using fingers, right? It was just unhygienic. So my idea was to have it, in a where you have a touchless dispensing. So which is why we introduced this touchless dispensing, where you can share it without people to having to dig their fingers inside. And it's thinner than a credit card. It fits in pretty much everywhere. It also sticks on your phone. If you have a MagSafe phone case, it'll stick on your phone. So that's the other part of convenience I felt for myself, which is the problem. I said, it'd be nice if there's a mint which sticks on my pack. I don't have to carry it in my pocket, and it fits in my, if you wear jeans, you have the little small pocket in your jeans which you perhaps never use. I guess Steve Jobs launched the app, their Nano. He took out the Nano from there, and I said it's a Haldy pocket now because my mints fit in those pocket, in that particular pocket. So it was about little things that I felt that will really help build the reason, the why, that why should people have it. In addition to the goodness of turmeric, the packaging plays a big role in our value proposition to consumers. And then recently it was very interesting. I was on a flight, and in some short distance flights you don't have entertainment television. So in a flight there was a gentleman who had put the mint pack on his phone, and he was using it as a stand. So it was standing, and he was watching, and it intrigued me, and I couldn't stop, like, why, how is he watching this? Then I saw that he was carrying my mint pack. I gave myself a high five, that wow, my mints are some random stranger has it, but he used this as a stand for his phone, watching. I was like, oh, wow, that's another use of the mint pack. You get more for your money. You don't have to go spend money and buy a new, sort of a sand. So anyway, so jokes aside, small problems, small issues. I just gave them a better reason to buy us, our product and our brand.
And when you validated it with your friends, why do you think they reacted like that? Like what? Why do you think they had that reaction?
So well, I think it was, why did they have the reaction? Well, I think it was a very genuine appreciation, I felt, because they have never eaten a mint which has turmeric in it. And normal expectation would be that it will give you the aftertaste, or it'll stain their teeth, for example. So once they had it, the feeling of aha, the not overpowering taste of turmeric or the mint, for example, it was very subtle. And the way they had it, they liked it, they felt that, oh, this is very interesting, I could eat this, it's so soothing. And then that sort of built across the board in terms of the feedback that we were getting from people. So it resonated with what we were looking to offer to consumers, and that's exactly what the feedback that I got. So it was a perfect match in that sense, where we were trying consumer trials with known people without telling them much about the product, but they had consistent feedback for us.
Mm. It's quite powerful when you think about just like you know to get that validation there, from other people, and just really like why do you think right now is the time for Haldy exists? Like why is this the right time for Haldy to be here in this world?
Well, I said, it's never right time. It's very hard to say, because then people will never launch anything if it's not the right
Mm.
time, and they keep sort of procrastinating about when should we launch, etc. So the time is now. Whatever you want to do, just put it out there. Get you don't have to create anything fancy. Just do tests and trials with people that you know. Even walk into random strangers, and that's what I did really. I went, and thankfully I had my wife along with me, and we went, and I got a lot of women to open their bags to just see what's in the bag. And it so happened that mints were always there in most of them. I mean, I would say 100% of the people, at least that I met randomly in places, had mints in their bags. And thankfully, I lived to tell the tale. I was not beaten. My wife was there to sort of help me there. But jokes aside, I think the time is now, like I said, and also the problem to solve was give somebody or create something that gives a reason to people to engage with the brand or try at least. So which is why it is very simple. We have not overcomplicated what we are offering to consumers. We've just kept it very simple. Do you eat mints? Would you like to try a mint that gives you the goodness of turmeric but doesn't stain your teeth and you don't get the aftertaste? Most people will say, sure, we'd love to try it. And that's really where the magic happens. Once the people eat the mint, it's unbelievable. Like, it's just the whole reaction, the feedback they get whilst they're the mint there is the freshness of breath. It's just incredible. Like the whole, that feeling is, second to none. So which is why I think, like I said, the time is now. I felt that there is a need because people also changed the way they were looking at what they were consuming during COVID because they had probably a lot more spare time on their own to see or to read the label or to make be a bit more choiceful in terms of food habits, which allows them to boost immunity in the time when there is no vaccination or it's people are pushing you to do boost immunity, for example. And that was something that I felt people had across the board and just allowed me to test that hypothesis of this mint initially. And people were, they embraced it, so I was quite fortunate in that sense.
Can you just like if we rewind just a little bit, what was your experience within private equity exactly? Because I'd also like to connect that in terms of okay, and how has that experience helped you in now when you have something like Haldy to help it? Because I want to go into okay, how does now Haldy scale? Because it makes sense, right? If everyone has a mint in their bag, then that's a product that is needed in the marketplace, and if it's needed, it's valuable because people will always buy. So yeah, I want to go into scaling, but yeah, what was your experience in private equity
So
world?
it was fascinating. I was in New York, I was in Columbia. I had the fortune of having a few job offers at that time. And I decided to come to Asia because that's really where I felt that I belonged. And also in terms of growth and family, our first child was born at that time. Singapore came calling, and I sort of jumped on the opportunity, came here, and it's a private equity real estate fund that I was working with. And the whole idea was to invest in hard assets and also learn about, the real estate market in terms of how do you turn around an asset and make it more valuable. So we were investing across Asia, looking at investing in India and across the region, and also managing real estate assets that the fund owned and making them create more value. So I think that learning was all about how do you create value, how do you look at opportunities where some people may not necessarily look at. So that gave me a very interesting perspective and insights in terms of how investments are looked at. And I compared that in a similar way with starting my brand because I feel that, people are trying to create value at the end of the day because that's really where you give back to your shareholders. And that's the approach I've had with Haldi as well, where I'm not shortchanging in the process. I'm not lowering my cost of production or my quality that we are launching just to get better margins. That remains the same. But I'm trying to build a brand, create value. It's a lifestyle product. So, our the what we use, the steel is very high quality, similar to some of the other brands like TWG, Bacha Coffee, very high end quality of me. So that's the value I want to bring, and that's the learning that I had in private equity, where I think you create more value for your shareholders, and create something that perhaps lasts a long term, and sort of finds its own way over time, I suppose. So yeah,
Mm.
and sometimes you got to punt on things that you're not very sure of, and that's the other thing which when you're underwriting deals, you understand that sort of dichotomy where you don't know how it will play out, but you believe in something, and I think that self belief is very important. A lot of investors were putting behind money, behind founders, etc., have that belief and in the founder. So it's similar to the private equity and real estate, where you believe in the product and the building, for example, that you're investing your money behind because you can turn it around, create more value, etc. Right? So that's really how I have approached this myself in the brand that I'm building.
Wow. And just so quickly on the real estate, were they buying apartments, housing, commercial?
So pretty much office, hotels, mixed use assets, all sorts of stuff. It's one of Asia's largest investment funds now, and done extremely well. I was very proud to be with a team that also spearheaded India as one of the investment countries, and of course managing portfolios in Asia, which was quite exciting as well. So yeah,
Okay.
so a lot of.
Yeah, very, just that concept is very intriguing in terms of getting that value. So with Howdy, then, how do you scale now? How do you scale, and who are your competitors?
Okay, so the two questions. So first, I think the in terms of scaling, Singapore is a very complex market. Many call it a showroom. It's a complex market, but it also gives you the validation where you can test your brand in the local market, because it gives you that a very diverse pie as a consumer base. And of course, it's not easy because it's very expensive. So we have, I mean, this is now our third year when we launched the brand. So it's done quite well locally. So we are online, offline, both within Singapore. The ambition was always to launch the brand overseas. And we had looked at the US as a market. I was incidentally supposed to launch it last year in April, but then had to change my plans. So we ended up launching in Malaysia. Obviously, a very important place, a market as well for us. We have seen great traction there. We had initially launched in one particular heritage store in Malaysia, which was very popular amongst local tourists and expats. And then we now recently launched with a chain of grocery stores called Cura Foods in four locations, now expanding to fifth. And the ambition again is to launch across KL in different parts as well, which we are already working on at the moment. Including, so there were two things in terms of the B2C will continue to play offline, online channels, and then B2B was another place which I have been consciously building, which is trying to drive more volume, which allows me to enter into different categories. So, for example, we signed our first deal with a Marriott Bonvoy Hotel in Singapore, where we launched our mints. We created a new flavor for them called cinnamon, and we have their logo on the pack. So the whole and now this is given to their guests as amenities. So the idea also was to find unique places where people are trying to create or give their guests a better experience, and not a very sugary substance or a mint, for example. So I'm trying to change that habit as well. And at the same time, in terms of competition, of course, we are a very small fish. I mean, the likes of Mars, there's so many big companies. Ferrero, there are big companies who are in the mint space. But again, I think our competition is within our own self, in the sense that our category is very different. The places we play is very different as well. So we're not going head to head with, fighting for shelf space, because I will never have those deep pockets. Neither that's the way that I want to build the brand as well. So we have taken a more unconventional route where we're working with in different spaces. Like we launched Haldi in all fitness first clubs, which is the gyms in Singapore. So all the gyms carry a mint. So we are playing very different areas, but we're getting good conversion because those places there's a higher conversion. So you're not one of many mints lost in a shelf where the consumer is sometimes looking for value or pricing more than value or more than what they get from the monies, right? So that's the place where I don't necessarily want to compete in. At the same time, we will be at some point in large format grocery stores as well. So we are dialogue discussions are going on. It's all about what's the price, and what's the give and take, and where do we land up on shelf. So it's a continuous process, but the dialogues have begun, which is quite exciting.
I think on the B2B side, I think it's very, very scalable. Even like, for example, private chauffeurs, these people when they come pick them up in the private car. Imagine if they now have as an amenity the Howdy Mint there. So now that CEO he comes in the car, boom, and then he's got a Howdy Mint. They're traveling, private jets, first class, even Emirates. Like that's I think on the B2B side, it's definitely even yeah, quite scalable. And then that will naturally come across to the B2C side anyway. But that's why I think that type of amenity, like even I have an Airbnb in Kenya. Imagine if now an amenity when the guest checks in, that imagine we just leave a Haldy mint in the one in the bathroom, one at the door. So even me, if I go to an Airbnb and I go in there and say, oh, they even have mints for me, and the packet's pretty cool. So you're even giving me
Yeah.
ideas now.
No, absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think you're very, very right. I think the usage, there are plenty of usages in terms of, occasions where you can eat it. And again, like I said, mint is something that people pretty much everyone consumes in one form or another, right? So you're absolutely right. I think that's the big ambition is to try and diversify places to play and look at other areas where we believe there is a better, higher usage, and also allow the partners that we work with to give them an opportunity to create something or offer something a little bit more meaningful. At the end of the day, a brand is all about storytelling, right? So if you and there's a lot of storytelling behind our brand. It's not a very mass produced commercial brand or a product that's available everywhere. It's a bit of it's a unique product. Packaging plays a big role, and it also gives you a lot more in terms of offer when you look at pure packaging. Once the mints are done, it's recyclable, you can upcycle it, you can reuse it. A lot of people are reusing it as well. It sticks on stuff, so there's a lot of interesting elements to the product, and consumers love that because they feel that, oh, it's something very different, which is why in Singapore, in some places where we are selling, a lot of expats and tourists who coming and buying, they are carrying lots of this back with them as gifts because they feel that it's a very unique product. They love it so much so that, there was a very large wedding in India, and just sidestepping a little bit, there's a ceremony in Indian weddings called the Haldi ceremony, where the bride and groom are sort of given a paste of turmeric and put on their body. So our mints went as a gift for guests in a haldi ceremony. So it was something that I never really thought about, but consumers who are having it are trying to find ways to connect with the brand. And so that was a very interesting play where it's a Haldi ceremony, the brand is Haldi, it's a perfect fit, right? So that's another big segment. The weddings, and the wedding industry, the whole is huge in India, right? And then also in Singapore, there was a Chinese wedding in Singapore where they wanted to give door gifts, and red is a very auspicious color, so they gifted this to all their guests who were at the ceremony, and it was all lying on the tables, right? So people are finding ways to connect. And the other very interesting thing for me is that people don't necessarily gift mints as gifts to people, but now they have started to do this because of what we have launched or what we are offering, because the packaging really stands out. And typically, you would gift a bottle of wine to somebody or a box of chocolates or what have you. We created gift packs specially to change or give more options to people to choose as gifting. So there's formal gift packs, there's informal gift packs. We have very cute mini bags, and we have a very formal gift box, which corporates have bought. A lot of corporates are actually selling them and giving it to their clients, etc., including meeting rooms. So our gift boxes, our mint packs are in the meeting rooms. So people are eating mints while they're having a meeting in a conference room. So yeah, so it's been interesting in terms of the whole play around possibilities, and I'm forever optimistic, always looking for to create more value and find ways to wow the consumer, and give them a reason to move to us, to switch to our product and our brand, and that's really what I'm trying to do, and we'll
So
continue to do.
let's say to put our technical hat on. So how do you scale? Let's say even if I'm an investor and I say, okay, this looks interesting. How do you now take Haldy from where it is to have whether to go public to now scale? How does what's the where do you think where you are now sitting as CEO and founder is the direction for you guys to be a global company?
Sure. Well, it's a question I have asked myself. I have tried. So we are bootstrapped. So all the funding that we've raised is my own capital, and we are trying to, and whatever revenue that we've got is going back to the business to create, to sort of increase production, etc. The way our go to market has been through partners, distributors, and it's been very similar to how we've done in Singapore, where we worked with stores that are selling unique products or selling are open to stocking our mints. That's been the approach. So the approach will continue to remain pretty straightforward: work through distributors or ship directly to retail stores, supermarkets, what have you, and build on that. Sorry, that traction. When we reach a certain size is when I would like to raise money. I believe probably angels is what I would look at. And of course, like I said, the we were looking to raise in the US, which is the world's biggest consumer market, but we had to defer our plans. So of course, now I have to go back to the drawing board to understand, okay, what are the numbers that I would look to raise through angels, for example. So it allows me to play and enter new markets that we've already identified now. And then once that's done, we'll have a better idea in terms of how traction goes, where is the market moving, which segment do we need to push, unintended, our products in. So of course, we need the funds to grow faster, and I will certainly be having some discussions. I've actually kept some angels away, and a lot of them have reached out to me as well to put money, but I was not ready in that at that time because, like I said, we were still testing, and Singapore is a very small market per se, but we've done well. We have done well. We have established deeper roots in Singapore. We've also spread the base in Singapore, so we know the market is we've done well, and now expanding to Malaysia, looking at some other countries, and as we grow, we will need funds for that. So I will certainly be speaking to some people that and looking to raise money for sure.
You said you couldn't go to the US.
Yes,
Why?
we were looking to launch last year but then with the April Liberation Day tariffs that we were hit with, the complexities around that were a bit, it gave me a lot of uncertainty because we didn't. It was very hard to put a number behind our landed cost in the US, and we were looking at working with distributors, including Amazon, for example. It was very hard to understand what's the cost to consumer at the end of the day after incorporating all the tariffs that go into that, right? So, and it was a risk that I was not ready to take. So perhaps that was the hardest decision or the toughest decision I had to make, was to defer US despite having trademark registered. A lot of legal fees went in. It was a big setback in a way, but I guess it's part of an entrepreneur journey. It's never a straight line, right? So again, you have to find alternatives, and again, it just so happened that we launched Malaysia, though, which was already in the cards. We just happened to launch it sooner than later, for example. And also, I tell people that you got to be very focused in what you're doing, and I have to be very focused in terms of my approach to where I'm looking at engaging and who I'm looking to engage with is also very important. So I have had to politely say no to many people who reached out to me to either take a distributorship or to get the brand, because there's a lot at stake as well. So I need to make sure that I'm working with the right partners as well. And I will continue to do this and follow my gut, and do what I believe is the right thing to do, not just for myself but also for the brand in a more longer term period.
Well,
But US continues to be at play. It's a market I cannot ignore. It's a market that I want to be in. So it's God willing, everything will happen, and we will be there as well for sure.
yes, I mean, US is a huge, huge market, very big, and I can see this also. Europe is also a big market as well, but once you get in, then I can see this taking off. And what would you say has been like the biggest challenge that you've had like this whole time? Like, what's been the hardest moment?
Well, I think the challenges continue. If there are no challenges, then life is not very exciting. I have a very solution mindset. I've always approached things very solution mindset. Challenges are there's challenges every day. Like we were looking at the Middle East, and now look what's happening there. The challenge will continue. There's a lot of uncertainty given the geopolitics and the world that we live in. It's a very real scenario. You can never make long-term plans. All the If people are looking to raise money through Excel spreadsheets and doing 3-year projections, well, don't bother, because it's all fluff. But whatever the challenges are, we have to have a very growth mindset, a very positive mindset towards it, and always find alternatives. And that's the beauty. So in terms of challenges, like I just said, we were looking at the Middle East. We will continue to look at the Middle East, but we have to now understand the implications of that, and then see when's the right time to enter as well. And again, production challenges will continue in terms of pricing. I mean, I was just telling on BBC, there was an interview that I just was a part of, where we were talking about, we produce our mints in China, and given the tariffs on Chinese goods to the US market has taken a big toll in terms of volume production in China, which means that the prices have gone up in terms of price of production because the volumes have decreased. So people like us who are sourcing from China or producing in China have been hit with additional fee that we need to pay. But again, thankfully, we have enough buffer, so we are very comfortable. But again, it's just something that it's very hard to plan for given the world that we live in today. But again, challenges are fine. I'm not bothered by challenges at all. There's always a solution and nothing is permanent. So we find a way around things.
Yeah. And by the way, let me ask you, have you traveled to Africa before?
No, incidentally, no. I have very dear friends who live in South Africa. It's been on our bucket my bucket list, especially Kenya, of course. For a very long time, and I hope if not this year, next year probably we'll check that off my bucket list. It's been on my cards. My brand is registered in South Africa, trademarked, right? So it's also a place where I have my friends who buy my mints and take it with them for their friends and family, which is always a good thing. And now I have more reason to explore. So yeah, why do you ask that though?
Because I can think about Haldy in Africa. Like I'm thinking because even when I go to Kenya, mints, like I always but I get like there's like those like cheap ones for like 10 cents a like I just get, so many. Like I always go get mints when I'm in so I think it's also it could be huge in Kenya and in Africa. As I said, we'll have it in the Airbnb for guests, but like I think in Africa this would scale really well. And it's an emerging market where a lot of companies now are going. So anyway, you guys can just be everywhere: Australia, Africa, all continents around the world.
Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I guess the category that we play in, it's a more global, it's a more global play. Mints are across every region, every country, just different flavors, what have you. So in terms of the playing field, the market size is huge. And right, so now when you're elevating that with packaging and giving more reason for people to consume the mints makes it a bit more exciting. And given that our B2B play is big, and of course, if you don't really see mints branded with luxury hotels, right? So we have cracked that sort of in our first go. The ambition is to take that, and of course, and the idea, of course, remains that we want to build that relationship across different markets, different regions with different players in the segment. And hopefully we'll get there, right? Including Singapore Airlines. So we sell in Push Sharma. We also in private jets. So the idea is to build on that play and increase our base. And yeah, so I'm always looking at opportunities in Singapore, out of Singapore. If you want your if you want your corporate logo on our mint pack, we can talk. So I'm always looking at things. I'm a deal maker. I want to get things done. I want to make things happen, and obviously give value to whoever I'm working with and um, make them make better choices.
Yeah, and like I said, even just with the hotels, like I can just see that, like, that's incredible. Like you get all the hotels. Imagine they get Howdy, and then now these hotels have also now international ones. So that's how you just take it from there. Because I can just envision it that all big hotels they can have imagine a Howdy, and that's why it's okay. I'm just thinking even as a point, if I was an investor and like this is it's like if I was to put my money in this, I know I could see how it could go even more because yeah, like it's just yeah, things like that.
Thank you so much. That's a big vote of confidence. So thank you very much. You're absolutely right. I think people just need better. There weren't any opportunities, and we are creating those opportunities. So which is making people really think we could do that. And also it's all about differentiation. It's also about what's the value we're bringing to our guests, what's the story we are telling our guests, that why do we have these mints, for example, etc. So in that sense, it's a very interesting play. And to your point, this can be anywhere. It can be South America, Africa, US, Europe, anywhere. Because mint is as a product everyone is aware of. Everyone's perhaps eaten mints in their life if they're not they haven't already, or turmeric in that sense. So thankfully, it's COVID. It's a lot of people were in very doom and gloom when COVID happened. Of course, it was a very challenging phase. But I created a brand during COVID, and there's a story to tell why the of the why this happened, which resonates with people when I'm talking to them and telling them the reason of why should you have our mints, what is it in it for you, for example, right? So, and that's I believe, at the end of the day, brand is building a brand is all about storytelling, and you have to be consistent in what you're saying, telling people, not confusing the audience or the consumer. So we have tried to be uh, as straight as we can in terms of what is it in it for them, and how we can help. And yeah, and I'm always trying to find ways to scale and grow and find new consumer and grow the base.
Powerful, powerful. What we're gonna do now is go into. I like to play a bit of a game. So I'm
Oh,
gonna say a word, and then whatever comes to your mind, you respond. Okay.
I will try.
Okay. Persistence.
Determination.
Explain.
Well, if you're persistent, you have to be very determined in what you're trying to achieve. And I feel that you have to have the right headspace and mindset and approach to things that you're doing. And you have to be persistent. It's very interesting. My PUS says persist until something happens, continue to play. So I'm very determined and driven in that sense. So yeah, so I'd say determination.
Okay, I love it. New York.
The city that never sleeps.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think New York is very fast paced, very energetic. So energetic, lot of energy.
Quite. Like I said, it's one of my favorite cities.
Yes,
Just like
yes, yes, you did.
Well, what were your thoughts on it? Did you? Because, like I said, there's a lot of people that either, so many people, every time New York comes into the topic, it's like they either love New York or they either hate New York. Which side were you of on that
Well,
spectrum of New York?
it's so of course, I've been to New York multiple times as a tourist for many years. I have family in the US, right? But as a student, I had a very different relationship in New York. I think I embraced it a lot better because when you're a tourist, you're only going to certain places and seeing the good stuff. I've embraced a lot of things in New York, including a shootout, twice in two occasions. But again, at the same time, it's something that gives you a lot of hope. It provides you with a lot of opportunity. It provides you with deep connections that I've built over time. My classmates, my cohort that I sort of was in school with, I continue to be in touch with a lot of them. And that sort of camaraderie, that passion when they visit Asia and Singapore, it remains. And we obviously go back and talk about how things were back then. So I think New York continues to be a fantastic place. It's a great city, very diverse, multicultural, lot of great restaurants, and I'm a foodie, so New York has amazing places. If it's a foodie's paradise in many ways, and the White Christmas in New York is amazing. So yeah, a lot of good stuff.
Okay. Private equity.
Complex.
Explain.
Well, I think complex is given how the world has evolved. I feel there's a lot of. I mean, if you look at a lot of office buildings, for example, which were. I mean, let me just backstep a little bit. When you look at in the real estate private equity space that I was in, we were investing in buildings which will basically be taken over by certain tenants of a certain kind, for example. But the way things are going, if you have like this whole WeWork co-working space took away a lot of large spaces from offices. People downsized during COVID, and that sort of took a toll in value and asset appreciation. The values came down because office spaces were empty. There were a lot more vacant spaces than offices, or even retail for that matter. So it's complex because it's very hard to see how things are progressing. Also, the way the geopolitics things are working out right now. Like there was unfortunately some sharpnels were landed in Dubai, and people are scared that the real estate value is going to tank or sort of, right. So there's a lot of uncertainty around that aspect. So in real estate private equity, especially, that those are very it's a very complex space to play in because it's at the end of the day it's a hard asset, right? So it's not easy to position it for a certain type of consumer or a tenant because a lot of tenants that were there don't exist anymore. So you have to find alternatives, and then you have stuck with a large space which is empty and not giving you your money's worth. So which is why I said complex.
So for example, like let's actually talk about that. So you're saying now in Dubai, because of kind of the geopolitics, now real estate, you're saying the value is not going to be as high now?
No, no, I'm not. Don't quote me on this. It's just things that I'm hearing from people who
Mm-hmm.
are in Dubai. They're just feeling that if it just because in the safe haven that it is, this was not necessarily a very planned whatever
Yeah.
happened. It was just so in that sense, people are a bit skeptical or scared or feel a bit scared or unsure that how things would play out given this has happened, right? Which is why I said complex. And yeah, I mean, I think private equity by nature, you have to be a numbers junkie to have to solve those complexities, complex Excel spreadsheets. So by literal terms, it's complex,
Okay.
but it's also exciting. I think. Yeah, go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
No, I think it's also very exciting because it's also exciting in terms of how those complex numbers or valuations or Excel spreadsheets create so much value and opportunity and sort of, give rise to new businesses, new ventures, and so in that sense, it's sort of a mix of both. But of course, it remains complex.
Wow. See,
A lot of responsibility, but having a foresight vision. Yeah.
vision. Can you talk a little bit about that? You said foresight vision. What does that
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, I think in terms of it's very hard to predict what's going to happen in the future, but at least you can preempt certain things by having the guardrails. So, when you're looking at, you have to basically make sure that you are taking, like you mentioned earlier, calculated risks in terms of what your approach is to a certain thing that you're trying to do. So you have to have that foresight, that vision, and that responsibility to make sure that you're not sort of putting all your eggs, metaphorically speaking, in one basket. You need to make sure that you're hedging your options and trying to figure out the best route. And sometimes the road less traveled takes you the furthest and more rewarding. So in that sense, it's also very hard to preempt or predict what may happen. You have to make sure that you have covering your bases and making sure that you are working out scenarios that may or may not happen along the way. So in that sense, you have to have that vision.
Love it. Okay, Push. I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really, really amazing to just get your vision, get your passion. Yeah, as I said, I see the potential in Haldy, and I know we're going to have many conversations in the future. Yeah, that was really awesome, and thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me. It was wonderful chatting with you. It just felt like we were sitting in a coffee shop and just chatting away. And I'm sure we could have continued for another hour, if not less. But yeah, lovely to talk to you, and I look forward to catching you in Asia, in Singapore.
No worries. And to be honest, that's why because it's so natural. I was like, I know myself. I will just keep asking you questions. I have to even sometimes refrain myself because when you say something, I just want to keep asking you more questions and more, and I just keep getting curious. And but I'm wary of time, and but it's been good, and I just think it's good to like have these conversations, and just it always keeps us thinking. And as I said, what we do here is also helping powerful visions like that come out to the spotlight, right? Like I told you, the whole world needs to know about Haldy. And then we can see, okay, if there's so many people out there who are looking for something like this to invest in, and now they have this podcast that they can watch and spend 55 minutes with us when we're not in the room, we're sleeping, but they're listening to this podcast, something that lives on, right? And then, and just helping create that value and helping bridge those investments and us making this into a business at the same time. So it's just really encouraging just for me to sit with on a hat. Okay, like I've seen Haldy, but I'd love to hear. Like I have different questions. Okay, who are you? What's the market like? But I can just in my mind already see it. Like I said, had a few ideas where just having Haldy everywhere is powerful. So yeah, I just want to thank you. It's awesome.
No, thank you so much, and I'm so glad that you were also thinking. So that's been a very interesting insight for me, where people who have engaged with the brand come up with ideas and they come to me and say you should do this. So which is the most exciting thing from a entrepreneur or from a startup founder, where my consumers or my partners are thinking on my behalf, and then you find ways to work around it and make things happen. And that's been the beauty of in my journey, that I have been so fortunate that I've had like-minded people engage with the brand and also open doors for me. Whether it's getting interviewed in different television or even in newspapers, for example. It's that connection that we had, and I'll just give you a quick example. We had just launched Haldi in February, and in March we were to exhibit in Singapore, and I met these people who came and bought Haldi, and they came back later. They said, we would love to have you in our conference we are doing. It's about health and wellness and fitness. It's Asia's largest health and wellness fitness. And I said, this is great, but I don't have the funds to invest. He said, no, just come. And I went and launched there, and it opened an entirely different domain of consumers, which I had not initially thought of, where the health and fitness experts in the wellness category. It's just catapulted. It's become pretty big, and it continues to play and wow me. Like I said, we were in Fitness First, Plunge Club, so lots of interesting plays have come around that engagement, just by putting the brand out there and people connecting and then opening doors for me. It's been fantastic.
Amazing. Well, let's end it off there. I appreciate you, Push, and have an amazing day.
Cheers. Thank you. Have a holiday.
Yeah.
Thank you.
A
Cheers,
holiday.
brother.
That's another idea, social idea. Have a holiday day. Look at that.
Have a holiday. Yes, yes.
See ya. Hey, what's wrong? Bro, I'm stressed out. I'm running my business. I've got to serve my customers, but I need more customers coming in. I can't keep relying on word of mouth. Why don't you just use ETS Rabasha Media? Who? Well, with AI now, what they do is they go in, get your perfect clients, bring them in front of you. So all I got to do is run my business and he brings me opportunities. Think about it. You speak to 3,000 of your ideal customers, convert 1% of that 3,000. That's 30 people. 30 people in a room with you. Can you convert that? Of course I'll close them. I'm good at what I do. I just don't have time to be going and looking for my perfect client. Focus on what you love doing and let them bring you customers. When you win, they win, commission, ching. Sujira Rubasha, huh? Yeah, Sujira Rubasha. Go and Google them, man. Come on, take it to the bank.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're gonna love that one.